Hey everyone, welcome to The Next Level, a podcast from the Team Performance Institute. Here we provide actionable insights on modern leadership and team development, driving higher levels of organizational performance and life empowerment. I'm your host, John Sanchez. Join me and my team as we take you on the journey to the next level. Well, welcome everybody. Welcome, Jeff Edwards.
Thanks, sir.
Appreciate so good to have your lifelong friend, Jeff Edwards, in the house. I think TPI, Team Performance Institute, owes should be a statue of you outside of our office for all the connections and all the stuff. But this is a bit of a different format because we're running Shift Happens, like your podcast. It's super exciting. Your kind of dream in building this podcast. And I think we're on the 15th episode.
We're making progress, learning from you, John, as always.
No, I'm a work in progress. So yeah. Perfect. I'll be your test study. So go ahead, buddy.
You know what? I typically start in a different place, John, but we're going to do something different today. So I would love to intro you, but I've heard your story enough to know that you're going to tell it way better than me. And so I don't think you were born a Navy SEAL. I don't know that for sure, but I don't think you were born a Navy SEAL. So take me back and maybe how did you get here with a recording studio and a family and just an amazing life that I get to see from afar? Tell me how you got here.
Yeah. Well, man, we could roll it back in like real time to sitting here to like go back a few years. So currently we're here at Team Performance Institute. It's been like this awesome. This is my dream come true. I've been doing this for 10 years and it's my dream come true. We're a small leadership development firm, 20 people. We do executive coaching, all this fun stuff that, you've been a part of and Cisco's been a part of. Let's go back in time real quick. I was born in Ohio, Bowling Green, Ohio, grew up in a really fun, small farm town. My father was an immigrant from the Philippines, and actually he was a refugee during World War II. And my grandfather was in the Filipino Army. My other grandfather on my maternal side was in the American Navy, which inspired some of my life choices. Kind of grew up in this really cool, patriotic world. I was inspired as a young kid to do the right things and go into the Navy. I went to the Naval Academy, which I was lucky enough to get in. I don't think I could get in now. My son, very proud moment. I have two sons and both of them are serving now. One's at the Naval Academy. One goes to Miami University and he's in the Air National Guard. He's actually with your daughter out in Phoenix. Yep. She's not in the same place he is, but he's in an air base out there. And my daughter is a senior in high school here. So, but going back to it, kind of grew up, went to the Naval Academy. From the Naval Academy, was lucky enough to be one of the midshipmen chosen to go into SEAL team training, which I got to do. I kind of thrived in that environment. It was a really tough environment. I felt like I found my people. I also felt like this is the level of team I want to be on. This is who I am. This is what I am. And I kind of dove into that. And I got to serve as a Navy SEAL. So I made it through that training. I got to serve as a SEAL. I got to serve as a platoon commander. I got to travel around the world doing all these really wild things that, go places you never want to go on vacation. But also do some really neat things, work in complex teams. Failed a lot. Had to get back up again and again in that failure. And boy, did I learn a lot. But what I learned mostly from that first, like if you look at that, first, career, if you will, being a Navy SEAL. I look at life through the lens of leadership. I think if you go in, I went in the Naval Academy 2 weeks after I turned 18, I showed up to get my head shaved and go through the whole process. And that put me in a spin cycle of seeing life through this rubric of like leadership. And I can't walk into a restaurant. I can't walk into a small business. I can't look at a business without thinking, how is this broken down? How is the leadership? What's going on here? And that was really fun for me as I entered into the civilian side of life. So my second career was being a financial advisor. So I became I was this cool Navy.
Perfect transition, right?
Yeah.
Navy SEAL to financial advisor. Yep.
Easy.
Got it. Okay.
Easy. If there's one constant with me is I walk into pretty much everything with an overconfidence. I can walk out, I got this, and then I get my butt kicked, get dropped to the ground, and then the other constant is like, I'm not gonna just let that kill me. I'm gonna get up again and try my best to figure it out. Being a financial advisor, I was, I left this cool platoon commander world of being a SEAL to be in the guy that cold calls you and interrupts dinner from Solomon Smith Barney in Baltimore. And I was like, oh my gosh, I struggled a lot. I had to learn a lot. And again, knocked to the ground and got up and started cold calling. 2 years of cold calling, 3 years of cold calling. Finally built a business and called thousands of people, and I loved it. So as a financial advisor for about 10 years, then I got into bank management. They hired me to be like leading sales teams. And that was very challenging to walk into that. Oh, I got this. I was leadership trained, Naval Academy trained. Walked in, I'm like, nope. My engagement scores after 6 months, the worst on the team. I'm like, how am I this, like, how could I be this trained, this good, or not good? I mean, it felt like I was good, and then do this poorly. And man, I tell you what, I had to go get some coaching, a 360. I had to work on myself. I got external coaching. I'm like, let's figure this new system out. So I did that. And honestly, I think that helped me get a lot of empathy for the corporate world that you live in Cisco, and how hard it is to do the work you do. When I talk to sales leaders and sales managers and, first line, second line leaders out there, I'm like, I get you, because I struggled there too. After all of that part of life, I just felt like I had to do something more. So this goes back, if you go into the Wayback Machine, now I'm about 40 years old, 41. And I'm sitting there as a bank executive, as an SVP, going, I want to try this. I want to try this team performance, this crazy idea of Team Performance Institute, and maybe we can make a go of it. And I did. And I'm so blessed, so lucky, because in those first years, I met you. It was 2016. I gave a speech for Stephen Ayub, who just took over Data Blue
100%.
in Nashville. And in the crowd, I can even point to where you were sitting in that crowd. That's how influential.
Was it the bald head or something?
It was, it was shiny. It was so shiny and so distracting. You have a little more hair back then. And I just was like, man, and I got, honestly, the speech I gave probably wasn't that good, but you saw something in me and you said, man, this guy is good, I think. And this was for Data Blue, a partner of yours at the time. Let's get this guy introduced to Cisco. And you started that introduction, and you introduced me to your boss, and then his boss, and then his boss. And it just came into this wonderful relationship that really built and helped, TPI. We were 2016 to 2020, we were events-based. You put me on tour for Cisco. Yeah. We've been around the world together.
Around the world, not just the U.S.
Literally, when I get a call from Jeff Edwards, says, hey, you want to come out to Switzerland to work with NTT? I'm like, yes, I do. 1,000%. And it was one of the highlights for me. So I'm not joking when I say we should have like a statue of you outside. There's other people that I've in other companies, like, Ray Lipsky with Dell EMC at the time, Dell Technologies, like those beginning foundational relationships created, and I can name like 10 other people, like, Eric Hutter or Lisa Maddie and, Unisys, all these great people. It's all word of mouth. So these relationships built where I am. So going back to the original question, how did I get here? I got here through relationships. I got here through really trying and failing and figuring it out. And I am a work in progress. So right now, right here, as we talk about some of this stuff, I'm figuring it out with you. But I get to share a perspective, right? Like, this is what I've just seen out there. But for 10 years, I've had this view into technology, and I've worked with a lot of your partners. I've done all these amazing client summits with you. I've been, really been blessed to have a friend like you, somebody I can call and ask questions to, but also you give me the insight into Cisco, which helps me help Cisco. So I'm excited for this.
Thanks for sharing one. I've heard most of that story before. I've heard other stories too. We won't get in on the podcast, right? But
we can.
I've heard
free game.
I've heard lots of stories, and I will call out just the one thing that I appreciate about you is that, and I'll maybe use different words, but the willingness to be a beginner again, like to start and not. Yes, you came in as an incredibly accomplished Navy SEAL, but you were a beginner again at PNC.
Yeah.
You became very good at that role. So you didn't give yourself very much credit in that, but I know the story well enough to know that you were doing well, except you wanted more. You wanted to experience something different. And so you became a beginner again. And that's been really, when I look back, like when I talk about John Sanchez, there's all these amazing things that I could talk about, but it's the fact that, one, he never says he never says no to an opportunity. And two, he's always willing to start from scratch and be a beginner, because you mentioned failure maybe 10 times in that little bit. And it's because failing is not the problem. It's just if you can't get back up.
Yeah.
Because that's the durable confidence.
Yeah, that's right.
I love that.
That's right.
Thanks for sharing.
Yep. So I'm going to turn this back on you. So this is episode 15, and luckily I get to do podcasts. So now you get to be your own guest on your own podcast, because I think it's important for your audience to know a little bit more about you, like who you are, how you got here. So I'm just going to flip the script. Sorry, this is unprompted, unscripted, everybody. It's not here, but like, hey man, how did you get here? What are some of the things that like have motivated you to get to this is your baby, you started this, but let's go also back in career. Let's start from the beginning. I want to know a little bit more about your family, where you grew up, all those things.
Sure. So I grew up, was born in Raleigh, North Carolina, but grew up in China Grove. I say that because no one listening knows where China Grove is. And no, it's not in the Doobie song. It's not that. It is a town in North Carolina near Charlotte, and grew up there. And my mom and dad were just really good influences. And the one thing we share is my dad was in the airborne. So jumped out of airplanes, and always ask him, why would you literally jump out of a perfectly good plane?
No such thing as a perfectly good plane. That's what we always say.
So I really got my roots on hard work, on, back to your point, understanding what the right thing is to do, understanding the value of relationships and people and connections. And so it started there, and I will couple lessons. So my very first job was it was on a tomato farm. That's why I said you couldn't do this.
Yeah, but no, this is great. Yeah.
It was on a tomato farm. And the reason I tell the story is there's moments. And the moment there, I was 16, dumb as I could be, right? And my job, it was a very glamorous job. So I stood on a truck all day in the heat and grabbed big boxes that were loaded with tomatoes, hauled them around, stacked them on the truck, gave a chip out to who filled the tomatoes up. But that was the best part of my day. The worst part of my day was when we went in to package the tomatoes, they gave me the hot glue box making machine that was about 189 years old. And the reason I have no hair, I'm going to stick with this story, is every day it would shoot hot glue all over me. And I tell you that to tell you this. 16, I woke up. It was my birthday. And I'm like, I cannot believe that I have to go to work today. I was like, I'm 16 years old. Like, I can drive now. Yeah. I'm going to a tomato farm to do that job. And my dad looked at me and said, you should be blessed to get to go to work every birthday from now. And it sounded silly at the time. I'm like, yeah, sure, Dad. Yeah, sure. Yeah. But I look back and ask my wife, it drives her out of her mind. I'm like, yeah, I'm working today. It's my birthday. So that kind of sets the foundation. And I love that. That's amazing. Yeah, that's amazing. What a way to look at, and what a perspective that your father could share with you on life, what work is, and blessed to have the opportunity to go and engage with the world that way. Yeah, it was fantastic. And I went to NC State, and I'm going to share something that not a lot of people know. I don't know if you know this one. Okay. So I went to NC State in Raleigh, North Carolina, and I got there, didn't play a sport, and my roommate happened to be a cheerleader for NC State. Really good cheerleading squad. Yeah. And basketball cheerleader? Basketball, football, the whole thing. Yeah. And they competed. And I got to know him, and I'm like, golly, that guy's like super athletic and hangs around all cool people, and like his friend group doesn't stink, right? Like that looks pretty good. Yeah, that's fun. And so I was like, oh, maybe I'll try that next year. Yeah. And so crazy enough, ended up becoming a cheerleader at NC State for the next 4 years. And I tell you that to say I was in front of large crowds. Yeah. Uncomfortable at times, and learned to be comfortable when I was uncomfortable, and learned to speak to larger groups of people, and understood the power of communication and that kind of thing. And so after that, I left and worked 1 year. So my dad worked at Bell South for 32 years, worked 1 year for Bell South, and said that was really good for him. But it's probably not meant for me. Right. And I had a friend who got me an opportunity to interview with Cisco. And for 17 years, I did just about every job known to man at Cisco. And the first job I answered, there used to be a line, believe it or not, 1-800-GO-CISCO. And my job was to take every unhappy customer and turn them into an opportunity.
No kidding.
And that we didn't have Google.
So wait, how old were you at that point? 24? You got to be
4.
Yeah,
24 years old.
Yeah.
There was no Google. There was no chat GPT.
Love this.
There was only, can I put you on hold?
I gotta go ask
And
somebody.
then I'm like looking all over the place, trying to find the answer. But that was resourcefulness.
Yes.
That was learning how to take a problem and make it an opportunity.
Yeah.
And you do that for a little bit, and you just start going into different jobs. But after 17 years, I was in more of a corporate role, a little farther away from the customer.
Yeah.
And I woke up and by the way, anybody listening to Cisco, you didn't hear this. I woke up and I could kind of do that job in my sleep. If you've ever been there, and you tend to have a pretty good regulator where you're getting to that, I think.
Yeah.
But I felt it, and I had this opportunity to go to a small security startup, and I said, "What the heck? Like I'm bored. I'm not growing. I want to be a beginner again."
Yeah.
Right. And so I jumped in, led a global role for them, but as my mom tells the story, Cisco couldn't convince me to stay, so they went out and acquired the company that I left for. And so 2 years later, was acquired back into Cisco, and have just been on a journey now between, the different parts of Cisco. I currently lead our service provider business, so all those incredibly complex but rewarding accounts like AT&T and Verizon and T-Mobile and Comcast and Spectrum. And so all the customers you know and love are now my customers, and we build managed service offers. But it brings me to now, and you're probably thinking, well, I don't know what a podcast has to do with any of that, right? We're in the middle of the single biggest partner program evolution Cisco's ever done in 25 plus years.
Yeah.
And as we were rolling this out, we did something that most people don't do, which I give us credit for, but it's also really difficult. And it was this idea of, we're going to launch a program without all the answers, because we trust our partners enough to help us build this together. Yeah. And now everybody wants to be part of it until you realize that we don't have the answers yet. And kind of scares you a little bit, right? But
I'm in. What are we doing?
Exactly.
What do we do? It sounds fun. Who's involved?
And not everybody has that mindset. We'll get to that in a second.
Yeah.
But as I looked at it, I said, you know what? I think there's a way to tell the story and to help our partners, not only our partners, our Cisco teams and others, just think about change in a different way. Yeah. Think about the evolution of something as concrete as a program at Cisco, but really zoom out and say, what does this mean for me? What does it mean for my company? What does it mean for the trust in our relationship together? Yeah. And what's that journey look like? And I love storytelling. I love talking to people. And I said, let's try this. Yeah. And here we are.
Yeah. When did this idea come to you? Like, I'm just going to do this. So was this like a moment of like working out where you're just like, was it New Year's? You're like, what how did
it was March, and I started playing around with it. And then we built a kind of an online education series that we did. Yeah. And after that, I said, man, we need to keep the conversation going. I don't want it to end right here. Right. And I love podcasts, and selfishly, I'm like, well, maybe we could do a podcast. Yeah. And we did it, and it went pretty well. And we did another one, and it went pretty well. And it's just enjoying it. And then it leads me to not only to talk about Cisco, not only to talk about something like Cisco 360, but to tell a bigger story, hopefully, around leadership and change and growth. And I couldn't think of anybody that I would rather talk to than you about those three topics.
We'll see about that. Let me ask you another question. In your wildest dreams, like, what would you like to see as a result from doing these podcasts? Because now this has become a big part of your life now. Yeah. Yeah.
It's a great question. And I may need to get some coaching from you on that. So I
love dreaming, like dream big. Like what, if this was the purpose around this, is like, what would you hope that people get from this?
I think it's a window into change on a weekly basis, that most of our episodes are audio only. We don't get this opportunity very often, that they can be doing anything other than work. Right. Right. But still learning just a little bit. The idea is each week to move forward. One of my, and if my team were around, they'd be rolling their eyes right now, but I talk about Mamba mentality a lot. And it's this idea of being a better version of yourself every single day.
Yeah.
And that's all I want to do. I want to help our teams, our partners, and hopefully more than just that. Because if we do this right, someone that doesn't work for Cisco and isn't a Cisco partner is going to learn a little something about life, growth, and change.
Yep. So I love it. And I love the idea of like incremental, like change. You're just going to give people, it's just something to chew on once a week or however often you're doing it, to be, here you go, here's a little bit more. Because I don't think we can go through change, just be like, got it, let's roll. Right? You just can't do that. It's a psychological process.
Can I ask you something on that? Because this is the part. And so the cliche is change is hard. I mean, we get it. Change is hard. You've been through more change than most. You've been in cultures that are different than most people have experienced. Just in your opinion, why is change so hard? Like what part of it makes it so difficult for people?
Yeah, great question. So what I've learned in kind of in studying change is when we first handle and deal with change, we're not really aware of our own personal bias towards it or our relationship to it. Change is in and of its essence like its own being, right? Some people love change. Some people are just wildly like, this is great. And in fact, if things don't change for them, they become very bored very quickly. Some people are very adverse to it. They don't want to be, they don't want anything. Once they get set up, they're good to go. They don't want anything to complicate their setup and everything. They're just a little bit. So as you think about it, one, there's this awareness that, oh my gosh, there's a relationship to it, right? And in that relationship, it's complex because it can challenge or threaten certain parts of your life, right? The big threatening thing for if it's change at work is like, hey man, am I going to be able to feed my family? Am I losing my job? Am I changing my boss, my system? Are we being purchased? Are we being like all these things come into play? And when people get comfortable in their jobs, they're comfortable for a certain reason, kind of set themselves up in that. They took the job, they had a description, they figured it out, and they go, it's cool. I like it. And I can be good at that. And they got coached into becoming good at something. And part of that becomes their identity. I know you're going to hit this probably on another podcast, but like that identity becomes a big part of your character, who you are. And then when change comes, it challenges your identity, challenges who you are, what you are. I got to work with EMC prior to Dell purchasing EMC. And then I got to work with Dell. So I got to work on both sides of this massive change and this massive, you've seen a million of these in the tech world where somebody's buying somebody and there's two different cultures that are colliding. And I remember I was doing this workshop and I'll never forget it because one of the executives said openly to everybody in the workshop, this leadership workshop, said, when I got my new business card and it said, it didn't say EMC anymore. It said Dell. And my name, I cried. Like I broke down and cried. I was like, whoa.
Just a business.
Oh, just a business card, right? You think that's just a little piece of paper with some words on it. EMC is 3 letters and Dell is 4 letters. What's the difference, right?
Same thing.
But it was their identity. They had just been changed. Like they put this different for life. They handed people this card. We used to do business cards, but that was a big deal, right? We still have them, but like they're all digital now. But for a long time, you would hand somebody, this is who I am. And when they changed that for this person, boy, was that impactful for them. So why is change hard? A lot of times it challenges identity, challenges who you are. It's hard to not look in the rearview mirror too on some of the changes that you might have been through. So as people learn to have to adapt to change, sometimes they had to deal with change in a foundational growth level in their lives. I come from a military background, but I wasn't a military brat. But I think about these military kids that you have to move from like every 3 years, like Laura Buchanan, who was one of our, she's our director of operations for us, director of impact. She, has young kids and they move like with these kids, like every 2 to 3 years. these kids are going to be like warriors of change because they can go into a new school system and learn like, okay, I'm the new kid because I'm always the new kid. I'll be here for 2 or 3 years. Yeah, they get it, right? Whereas, I grew up in Little Bowling Green, Ohio. If you move me, like everyone in my family went through the same elementary school, the same junior high school. We all went through this whole process. If you were to unplug us and put us into another school, that'd be really difficult. So when you think about, is it more difficult for some than others? Yeah, based on kind of how they grew up, what that represents to them. And if even more so, when you move a kid out, in high school, they have to go through an abrupt change, or, difficult because you have kids same age I do, that like there can be moments of change in their lives that also impacted their ability or their relationship to it. And so some of those folks, as you're dealing in corporate America, may be aware of that. Some of them may not, right? And when you get into it, we get into coaching, you're like, well, how did that work? When you had to move in high school, when you're a sophomore in high school, you had to move into a whole new high school. Like, I hate it. And then they just go through that dialogue of, I hated that moment in my life. And if you dig a little bit deeper into it, you're like, okay, so how is that impacting now? Because that's what coaching is. Like, how do we move forward? It's not therapy, but we're like, boom. And they go, oh my goodness, I didn't realize that my relationship to change is more adverse than it needed to be. 100%. That I fight against it because it's a self-protection mechanism. Ooh, I don't like this. You know,
it's one thing to know you don't like it. It's another thing to understand the relationship and why it triggers you. Right. And you said 2 things that really jumped out to me. And one is, this is who I am. And I mean, we could just put a period on that. And that would be the identity piece, right? Because I think all of us have something that we identify with who we are, right? And it's one of the strongest forces, I think, in human behavior is you will be who you believe you are. Yeah. Like, you will do whatever you have to do to be who you believe you are, and understand that relationship with change. But I think sometimes we're so quick to move to, let me get you to embrace change. We don't realize that, so the 4 basic emotional human needs, right? Like, everyone needs certainty. They get it different ways. Yeah. Everyone needs variety. Everyone needs connection. And everyone needs some feeling of significance. But before you get there, it's, can I feed my family? Yeah. Am I okay? And we don't think about that. Yeah. The basic needs. It's a real part. That's the basic part before we can get into how you embrace it. And it seems to me that as we move into how do you go through change and how do you embrace it, does it literally start with like a mindset in your mind? Is like, tell me how you think about it, how you coach people. Where do you start? Is it a mindset shift? I like it to start with just awareness, first of all, right? We have in Team Performance Institute, and I'll share this with you, and I've talked to Cisco about it quite a bit. We have a slide that we use called the roller coaster of change. And it's on the x-axis, it's a time continuum. So like, you start here and then you want to finish over there. On the top left is changes announced, and then it goes down the slope of like shock and awe and all the anger, frustration, needing to let go, all these kind of the negative side of change, until you get to the very bottom, which is a decision. Can you make a decision to move forward? And once you get to that decision point, then you start to find like hope and finding new structures and, and identifying in a new way. And it finishes with excitement. Like you're finally over through that. So when you think about like when change is announced initially, it's an awareness of where you are, how this is going to impact you. I start out with an awareness and ask people in the coaching world, like, have you really ever considered your relationship to change? And I like the idea of, we've talked about this, like if you could personify change, like if you could make change a person, what would change look like? Who would that change be? Like, is that a friend? Is it an enemy? Is it somebody you like? Is it somebody that is like you have to put up with? If change walked into this room right now, you would have your own version of who that person is. And I would have my own version of who that person is. And they would be different people based on our relationship to that. But so first of all, they come in the room and,
how do I feel? You're here now. Change just walks in like, what's happening? What's happening right here?
We may pull up a chair and say, let's go.
Yeah.
Others may say, oh my gosh, where did you come from?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And then we might say, as more senior leaders, ha, what's up, old friend?
Yes.
I've seen you about 100 times.
Yep.
And you're going to bring pain, but in the end, you're going to bring some good things. Right. I don't like you, but come on in because I know I can't get rid of you. Maybe that's your relationship to change. Maybe like me, I always viewed it as like this, like friend that's kind of like a partier. And I'm extroverted and I try to, I go to Oktoberfest every year and go to this awesome party with all my friends. So I'm going to be like, come on in, change, let's go. And then after about 2 or 3 days, I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't live with this anymore.
I have somewhere to be.
I'm so tired. Can you just leave me alone? But change is going to be here until we get through it. And then that'll leave. So it's one of those things that what I've accepted in my life is when it shows up, okay, cool. It's not going away until I work through it. And I got to embrace it in certain ways. And I'm good at some of those and I'm bad at some of those. And so just, dissecting, each person goes through it differently. Each person goes through a psychological process in it. Another big part in leadership is as a leader, you are probably better at it than a lot of people that you're leading, mostly because you've seen more of it, right? Think about 17 years at Cisco and how much your title changed, how many things you've done, all the stuff you've done. Just think about your life experience on top of that, like from having 1 baby to 2 babies to 3 babies, having them in different schools and, playing catch the bus with, with the wife and trying to figure out. Think about how much you've grown, but you've seen like all these changes. So as a leader, you're functionally better at it. You're just better because
you have more bats.
Yeah. You've had more at bats. You've had a lot of strikeouts. You went back to the dugout going like, dang.
It doesn't mean you got hits, but you had at bats.
Yeah.
You know what the pitches are, right? You've seen that pitch before.
It's my favorite in baseball. So I am left-handed. And, this might explain my terrible golf game. I will golf right-handed, but I bat left-handed. And in Little League, I used to go up to bat left-handed, and the pitcher would look at me and go, "Oh no," because I'm like 10% of the population, right? And I would just get hit by the ball every time. So I got on base a lot, but it wasn't pretty. It wasn't happy.
By the way, I had the opposite experience. Every left-handed pitcher I ever faced hit me. They threw hard and they hit me. So I went up going, okay, I'm getting ready to get hit. And pretty much that's what happened.
That's what happened. That's what happened. So, you go through that experience. Yeah. I forget where I was going because my small brain got off track on this one, but it's its own part that you have to get through. Leadership. Like you've been there before many times. So that's a big part. Second is as a leader, you get the information probably before everybody else. Right? They're not going to announce change to your whole team. They're going to announce it to the leadership team, and then you're going to cascade that change down. So immediately when you hear change, you start going through your process, and you are fast. You're like lightning speed, right? And
you have a head start.
You have a head start, and you're fast. So think about trying to catch up with somebody. Like we both drove here to the office. If I took off 5 minutes before you, there's no way you're going to catch me, no matter how fast you go. Right. But you're already 5 minutes ahead of me. And you're faster. So you're going to get over to that side easier. You're going to feel like, hey guys, this is way like we got this. Your team's going to be stuck back here. I'm still stuck in traffic. I can't figure this out. I'm frustrated, all stuff. And as a leader, oftentimes we get frustrated because we're like, how can you not see this? I left only 5 minutes ahead of you. It's taking you 20 more minutes to get here. Well, yeah, it's going to take up 20 minutes because they're not as fast. They don't know the way. We have to help guide them through that.
And the roller coaster you mentioned, we don't allow them to go on the down part of the roller coaster. We expect them just to pick up on the adoption and we're all in, right? But we got to go through that. We just go through it quicker. Yeah. And I think in a broader scope, we tend to want to skip that step. Yeah. And if you skip it, what I've found is you will go through it. Yes. It just might not be in sequence that you just described, but you will come back to it.
Oh, it's coming. You're going to deal with this. I always say you're going to deal with this at some point. Yeah. You can try to forget about it right now, but you're going to deal with it. Yeah, that's so true that it's the human aspect of it. One of our coaches, Madeline, she's really good. And when she coaches, she talks about neck up versus neck down. So neck up is like us as leaders and them as workers to be like, just go functionally, you can figure this out and make it happen. Neck down is like how it's the human side of it. Like, how are you getting through this? Like, how is this hitting you when you go home at night? Are you exhausted? Are you scared? Are you worried about your job? Are you worried about how this is going to go? Are you worried about your clients or your partners that are trying to get through this and you can't do anything about it? It takes its toll on you, right? It hurts.
Absolutely.
Right. And you just got to keep getting up every day. But if you're not paying attention to the neck down part, you can find yourself in burnout. You can find yourself exhausted.
So what do you find? I listen to, it kind of makes me think of mindset and shifts that you make. I believe his name is Mark Green. You had him on your podcast, right? Did I get his name right?
Yeah. I love Mark Green. Yeah.
My favorite story. Really well accomplished, but up before the story that and everybody knows. I remember the story you told me about working in Blockbuster before he joined the SEALs, right?
Yeah.
And I believe the customer came in, he was in his whole gear, right? If I remember the story correctly, and wanted to rent speckies, as he called it, right? Instead of species. And I remember just listening, and at that moment, he was like, yeah, I'm done. I'm out, right?
Yeah.
Like, I've made that shift in my head.
Yeah.
And what do you, when you're working with leaders, what separates the leaders that can make that shift? And instead of just getting through it, they use it as a launching, as a springboard or a launching pad for their business.
Yeah.
And I've seen you do that, going back to where we met.
Yeah.
Like, to be honest, I walked in thinking, okay, LPS, that was the partner. They're a traditional Cisco partner. Who's this Data Blue company coming in? I don't think they're a Cisco partner, and I don't know Stephen Aoub, and then I did know you. Yeah. And next thing you know, they acquired them. They acquired more companies, and now they're part of one of the biggest partners, $1 billion plus, that Cisco has in the world with a head.
Yeah.
And so that change represented opportunity, but sometimes we don't always see it. So what separates the leaders that are able to understand their relationship with change and at the same time hold two things that are opposite in the same thought, which is this is also opportunity, and how do they thrive as opposed to just survive it? Yeah.
Such a good story too, like the Data Blue and Stephen Aoub. And there was a guy, when we met, we were all really young. I mean, we got old, Jeff.
Yes, exactly.
What happened, dude? For a freaking time, we got into a time warp here. I'll probably look back at, I'm 52. I'll probably look at 62 and be like, what was I talking about being old at 52? There's something cool that happens over the 50-yard line in life. I like 50 years. I just feel like just a little bit more confident in what I'm saying. But if you go back to that and Stephen Aoub and that time, there was a guy who really worked on himself. Like, there was a guy who embraced change. He was super young, but he was excited about what could be. And he saw and then he went through and experienced so many acquisitions and mergers as he built this out. But I always recognized that he surrounded himself with really good people. He had active coaching through it. That this wasn't something like he's not, and most CEOs, and I'm very fortunate I get to coach CEOs. They are really trying to figure it out, and they're trying to figure themselves out. They spend time on themselves. They spend time on working with themselves and building on that. So as some people might say, oh, that looks cool. That looks like, man, I wish I could, like that the CEO like must be nice. There is definite perks to that position, but man, if you saw the work that goes on behind the scenes with some of these folks and how hard they work and how hard they try to, not just in the business, but work on how they can adapt to change, because the world's happening to them and the burden of leadership lies on their shoulders, and they have to help companies navigate through this. So as you know, the world is drastically changing with AI and all this new technology, and everything is just like coming about. And how do I was telling my kids, I don't know what you should major in college. My kids are like heading into the college years, because I don't think they've invented the jobs you're going to have.
Right? Great point.
But what I tell them to do, and this probably falls fundamentally into it, is be somebody that is adaptable to change, because you're going to need to be. B, I always, I go back to my time in the SEAL teams, and I had this great conversation with my daughter who's 17. So you be a go-to person, like a go-to person. In the SEAL teams, I call it a go-to guy because it was all males, but I told her, be a go-to girl, be a go-to gal. Like, and the way I explained that to her is like, when I went through SEAL team training, we had 22 boat crews initially. We had 140 people, seven people in a boat crew. I showed up, again, the overconfidence piece. I got this. I showed up. I signed up for a winter class. No officer signed up for a winter class. I did it because it's the harder class to go into. That's a whole other story about being, failure again. Like, bring it on. I'll do the hardest thing. I'll do the hardest thing possible. It was actually kind of more of a bet with my older brother who went through Hell Week in November. I decided I'm going to go through in February. I'll show him. Yeah. Maybe a case of overmotivation syndrome on that one. But when I did show up, man, it was hilarious because not hilarious. Well, now I look back and it's great. I was the only officer of all 140 guys. That's very rare coincidence, very, very rare happenstance where that happened to me. I was in charge of 139 guys. I'm super young and I have to take charge of the hardest warfare school like in the world where the dropout rate's 90%. It's crazy. 80 to 90% of them fall out. We lost 90% of our class. Started with 140, finished with 14. But initially, it was game on. We had 22 boat crews, and we had one boat crew leader in charge of all those boat crews. And they were in charge by rank. So just by rank, if you happen to be, in the Navy, probably at that stage, like 3 days longer than the guy next to you,
sure,
you had no real business being like the leader of that boat crew. But just by rank and order, they were all leaders. And I went to each boat crew and I quickly figured out who the go-to guy was. And I didn't care about rank. I wanted to know who was going to get the job done, who was going to be the person I could rely on, who could I rely on to give me a head count that fast. Let me know when somebody falls out, gets hurt, all that stuff. Like, I need to know quickly because I'm being hammered at the highest level here by these instructors. And we are all going to get tortured as a class if we don't have our stuff together. So I rearranged, I just found my go-to guys. That was it. And I arranged them. And you could tell when a go-to guy was in charge of a boat crew because they would consistently get up there and start winning. They could motivate their crew. They were younger, maybe less in rank. It didn't matter to me. I need go-to people. So I told my daughter, hey, when there's trouble, and your boss is going to walk in every day to change, trouble, challenge, whatever, you look around the room like, who can I pick to fix this?
Yes.
Because I don't have the time to do it. Now, the boss could probably do it because he's seen it or she's seen it a million times. Like, be my go-to. Go be curious. Go learn all this stuff. But start now, because you don't do the little things.
Right.
You won't be able to do the big things later. We have a pool at our house, and sometimes because I travel a lot, the pool just turns green. That's my job. Like,
I didn't get there overnight.
Yeah. You got to be watching that pool, right?
Yeah.
There's, I see a little bit of and there's a million things in the chemicals that happen with a pool. I told her, be the go-to girl. Like, I'm not going to tell you to go do that. You need to be aware of it, figure it out, go do that stuff. Bam. She kind of adopted and accepted that. And goes back to change. Like, you have to build on these little things incrementally throughout your whole life. It's the atomic habits that you're talking about, or like the whole clear, mentality is like, just get a little bit better at it, be aware of it, move forward with it. And as you do, great. You're going to have good days and you're going to have bad days. You're going to feel like, I got this some days. You're walking through this change curve and then it's going to happen again. You have to reset yourself. It's constant. The only thing constant is change.
And the two things that I think resonate with me for sure is, one, the more you do it, the more you stack those little bits of confidence. I've seen this before.
Yeah.
Well, it may be scary.
Right.
And you know how to react. And then I think, what role do you play in change? And so being that go-to person, for me, my role in change typically is to be the ballast, right? Or I want to be the calm in the storm, right? Where the blood pressure comes down, the temperature in the room lowers, right? So then we can have a conversation about change. But until that happens, it's really tough to do.
Right.
Sure. The other really tough thing to do, I've found, is, so the good news is, as a leader, you get experience about things that you've seen before. You can move quicker, but that experience can also lead to another challenge, which is you've been there, done that, got the t-shirt.
Yeah.
And the answer can sometimes always be the same one, right?
Yeah.
Because just because it worked 3 years ago, you assume it always works.
Yeah.
How do you guard against that? And how do you cultivate a mindset that is aware of history, because it's super important, but also understands that time and place matter just as much as any type of history might?
Yes. So, such a good question, because I believe the answer lies in humility and vulnerability for me. And I'll just share stories because it's so fun. I just experienced this personally because it's just so good. I think that remind me to talk about hobbies as a way to kind of build this out. With too much coffee, I'll just go on these tangents and I'll go on track for you. But this humility and vulnerability. So my son, who is a junior, so he's John. So I'm John Sanchez. He's John Sanchez as well, and he's at the Naval Academy. He's kind of following like this awesome. He's doing way better at the Naval Academy than I ever did. Like his grades are better. He's just so I'm so proud of him. I mean, I'll cry just talking about him. But he got some time home this summer. He had 2 3-week blocks where he had to come home for 3 weeks and be with us. Then he went on to do mountain warfare training in California. And then he came back for 3 weeks. And the first 3 weeks he came home, he was working out like a champ. He's a D1 wrestler, so he's got to get in this great shape. And he's like just throwing around weights and doing all this stuff. And I looked at it like intimidated, like, wow, man, that's really cool. I have this whole past of 20, 30 years ago. That was me. And now it's him. And I'm really proud of him. But I have this whole past of, I have this whole idea of like how to work out, how to build muscle, how to stay in shape.
You've done this a bit, right?
Yeah. I have if you look at it, like in terms of history, like, man, you look at me and go, geez, I went to 3 military world championships, 2 military Olympics. I won 2 gold medals, like in the military. I got to this high level of being as an athlete. And then, I don't talk about that stuff because I feel like Uncle Rico, like, hey, man, coach, coach would have put me in a little one state, man, and anybody that's sitting around talking about like high school football, like stop. But what I realized when he came home, I saw him working out. I was like, man, he's really doing some cool stuff. And it's a chance for me to bond with my son, but I leaned away from it. And I went out and just played golf and, drank beer and had a good time. And then he went away from mountain warfare for 10 days. And in that 10 days, I thought, I'm going to embrace it. When he comes home for 3 weeks, I'm in. Like, let me in on this. He's like, all right, Dad, coming home, we're going to work out. And so what I learned was, like, back to your question of like, as a leader who's embraced change, here's me with an athletic background. I've done all these things in the military. I was a D1 athlete for 4 years at the Naval Academy. I did weight training, all that stuff. He brought me into the weight room and he showed me things I've never even seen or heard of before. Like how to do muscle activation, how to keep from injury, all the stuff that kids are learning now that I learned. My strength coach was like, go get it, man. Squat as much as you can and deadlift as much. I'm like, and part of it, honestly, is probably got hurt in my 40s. I had to have back surgery because I was probably trying to work out like with 1990s mentality. He started me off with this, like, in a really good way. Here's how you work out and here's how you do it. And I learned so much, but I had to walk into that with a lot of humility. Here's an ex-Navy SEAL or former Navy SEAL, however you want to say it, who, for whatever reason, people look up to as like a physical guy. I can barely keep up. Of course I could barely keep up with a D1 wrestler, but like, man, he was showing me how to do this and how to work. And the cool part was it was a 2-way relationship because I was showing him how to fail. Yeah. Like I hit muscle failure a lot, like to the point where there were moments when, just doing the regular, like we worked so hard on some of this on the muscle in my chest. We did a big chest push day and I went to go do a push-up, just landed on my head. I was like, oh, wow. Like I can't, but I was showing him failure. And in that, like, there's such an opportunity for leaders to be vulnerable, to walk into the space and say, hey, I don't have all the answers to what you're doing with your partners. hey, we don't have all the answers. We're trying to learn this. I'm going to fall on my face right in front of you. And I'm going to, and as I did, I hit the ground and I turned my head because I couldn't raise my body. But I smiled. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm laughing at myself because I'm going through this. And I'm like, oh, and I'm in a way teaching him while he's teaching me. Right. And that's what leaders can do.
100%.
With leaders, they can go in and say, I don't know the answer. And boy, isn't that a wonderful thing to say to a team? I need you to be a part of this answer.
Yeah.
Greg Gatson, who's one of our TPI leaders, said, look, I got 2 eyeballs and I'm in charge of 100 people, 200 eyeballs here to look at the problem in a different way. You guys come up with the answer. You guys come up with, I'm here to help motivate and I'm here to help give you resources. I'm here to take out roadblocks. I want you to figure this out, but we got to figure this out as a team. If I figure it out, I'm going to figure it out in a certain way based on my experience, going back to the, how to lift weights.
Sure.
If he turned to me and said, how do I do this? I'd be like, I'd give him 1995 mentality on lifting weights. Would he be as good as he is now? Hell no. He's got the answers. And most people do. Your partners probably have the answers.
Absolutely.
But walking in there with humility and vulnerability and saying, hey, I'm willing to fall on my face for this. And I'm willing to do it right in front of you.
And you would have missed such a valuable opportunity with your son. And it would have been a miss for you, but man, what a miss what he would have missed out on, right?
Yeah.
Because he sees you dropping the ego, being vulnerable, and learning, right? And if I think about change, ego always, ego gets in the way. Unwillingness to be vulnerable gets in the way.
Yes.
But what it opens up if you do it on the other side is such an opportunity to learn and to help everyone understand the answer lies somewhere between all of us. One of us doesn't hold all those answers, right? And that's the fun part about this. And
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but it was fun about that. It's like, as you were saying that, I was like, you're so right. Like, ego is the enemy in certain ways. The way egos, we can dissect the ego in so many different ways, but can be the enemy with your inability. So I was just thinking about, we're talking about like the person walking in the room being the change guy, and then you could also bring ego into the room, and like change and ego are going to have a battle, right? And you can just sit back and this is all internally. You ever see the movie Inside Out? I love that movie. It's a great movie for coaching because you have all these people, but you could have like change and ego having this like battle out. And if you just sit there as the person that's encompassing all that going, I get this. Interesting. My ego is getting in the way in this instance. And by the way, these aren't just like one sliver of a piece. Like, it can pop up at any point. Change is so multifaceted. Like, you can be killing it on change, on helping this whole team go through, and then have this just weird thing happen in another spot of your life, and you fight it. So there's a million, like, we all have to deal with change all the time, but don't I guess self-compassion is a big deal, because you're gonna at some point you'll be like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize my ego is just beating the piss out of change right here. I gotta like tell him to back off, because change is never gonna leave. Change will not quit.
Right.
Change is not gonna quit. Change is
not going away.
Continue to come, right?
Your ego's not going away either, right?
Exactly.
And it's the inside out. It really is. And if we become observers, to that story and to those characters, as you put it, right, playing out, it's a way more influential place to be for good, right? Is to observe it and to say who's winning and why. In this battle. How do you, as we kind of work through the last little bit of like this mindset shift, and how do you think about change? How do you go from being overwhelmed, scared of change, to shifting to becoming, I call it a detective, right? Or solving a puzzle. If you view change as a challenge, it's very different than viewing change as something that's happening to you, right? How have you seen, maybe bring it to life, or how do you coach people to turn that change into an opportunity to go learn something, discover something about themselves, dig in a little bit?
I think for a leader, I think it is, and it's communication is so important. So, I think from my head, there's probably a couple answers into this. One is, if you present it as such, as you present it as a puzzle, like, it's exciting. This isn't like, guys, oh my goodness, we got a oh, this just came down and we're screwed. It's going to be bad.
Doesn't inspire no.
Or if you try to do it like, a lot of leaders do, and it's the way it's like, hey, this is, hard, we got to do it. Let's get through it. That's fine. Like, it's going to suck. That's fine. Cause it's open, it's open dialogue and you're recognizing the toughness of it. If you present it as, and again, this goes to psychological safety and creating this like level of trust to say, we got before us a puzzle that we got to figure out as a team. This is going to be hard. It's exciting and hard at the same time. I like change. Some of you don't. I get that. But we have this challenge in front of us that I can't solve. You can't solve, but we can. We have the tools here to do so. We're going to go through we're just going to go through iterations of this to try to get better and better and better at it. We're not going to get it right. One of the things I say to my team all the time is like, one of my favorite words is iterative. Like, let's just try this. Yeah. Let's put this out there. Everything we've done at TPI, the first Mach 1, Mod 0, the first model, it's good. It's not what it is now. Now it's great.
Yeah.
Right? Why? Because we tried our hardest. We got it to a certain point. I'd give us a B-.
Yep. Right?
Coming out of the gate on a lot of our things that we do, whatever products we're putting out there, coaching and training and all that stuff. But man, I'm so proud, and I'm obviously extremely biased, but I'd give us like an AA+ on the stuff that we do now. Why? Because we failed. We had to put it out there. But we approached it as an iterative process and a puzzle to figure out. We needed the feedback from our clients like you to say, hey, how did that go? And we need to be open to that feedback as well to say, some of the feedback we got initially was like, the greatest, the best, 10 out of 10. I'm like, super, not real.
Feel good. It doesn't really.
Here comes ego. My ego's feeling good.
It's kicking ass today.
But I said, we got one of our reports back one time, and it was like 30 something people, and they all rated us like 5 out of 5. And I'm like, this data is skewed. We might be asking the questions in the wrong way because we need real feedback if we really want to improve. And so I challenged the team to go back. We actually got a third party to come do our surveys for us, so we were a lot less biased. I think I might be asking the question like, Jeff, how was the podcast today? On a scale of 9 out of 10, which one would you pick, 9 or 10?
10 really would.
Yeah. So there's that. I think that going back to it, like, you have to help people. Let's go back to psychological safety. That's a term that gets thrown around a lot. It's really trust when I think about it. Your time to build relationships is in the good times. Like when you and I are crushing along and we're kicking it on a hike and we're getting to that summit. I'm like, let's go, man. Let's get after it. Let's go faster. Let's get at it harder, because I think we can set a record up out of this peak today. When we're going through a valley and you're depleted and you're tired and you're sore, that's not the time for me to push you as a leader.
Right.
That's the time for me to go, what do you need? How can I help you? We need to get you whatever resources you need, or get some of these obstacles out of the way. Or maybe I could take a few things out of your ruck so you can feel a little bit better, and then we can get going again. And those good times, you build on that. You build that sense of trust. With a psychological safety piece, if you're telling people that it's okay to fail, if you're telling people that, like, we just want you out there and try, and this isn't, by the way, people mess up this whole idea of growth mindset with just awarding effort.
Sure.
The whole, you tried hard, here's your participation trophy. That's not what growth mindset is. Growth mindset is when you finally get to the stage of life where you realize that when an opportunity comes up, well, actually, I by default just call it an opportunity. When a challenge comes up,
sure,
that you do see it as an opportunity, that you do see it as like, I can look at that and I realize this is a chance for me to grow and I can get better by doing this. I'm going to give it my best. Now, if you're my boss and I'm going through that, I also have to realize that when I don't hit the mark perfectly, you're not going to come down and say, you missed by that much. How did you miss by that much?
Right.
You're going to say, cool, man, that was cool. I see that you got some scatter points up there towards that target. And cool. What are you learning? How are you building? Like, how's it going? How do we get you more on track? You're doing great, by the way. Don't worry about like you had to hit that. You had to miss that mark to realize that your weapon wasn't sighted in perfectly.
Without missing it.
Right. Like how many people hit the target every time? Snipers can't. They have to figure out how to dial in their weapon first before they do it. And so, that psychological safety comes from boss to employee around like, hey, how you model it, how you go out and fail. It's me falling on my face, saying, hey, it's okay. It's okay to fall on your face. I believe that also helped my son.
For sure.
Go and realize, I can push myself even harder too. He's doing it at 10 times the weight level that I was doing it, 10 times the reps. But, how do you create that? So I think that you have to model it. You have to be vulnerable to do it yourself. You have to allow people to fail. And not, and keep it into perspective. Like they're probably not going to burn down the Cisco logo by having these incremental failures. You actually might know the answer, but you have to look back at the times in your life where you failed and realized that somebody came in and said, okay, cool. I got you. Keep going. And you internalize that. You made that your own growth pattern to move it forward. Yeah. Right.
You've done that for me. I mean, there's times where I'm like, I don't know what to do. I don't know where to get started. You're like, do these 5 things. Call me in a couple weeks.
Mm-hmm.
I did.
Yeah.
That's it, right? They weren't perfect.
Yeah.
They weren't great, but you start doing. And I think we do this everywhere else in our life. So in technology, especially applications, there's this concept of waterfall and agile delivery.
Mm-hmm.
Waterfall is the old way where you do it.
Mm-hmm.
You finish everything about that application before you release it, and it's got to be completely done and you release it. The problem is, if you do it that way, by the time you release it, it's done.
Yeah.
It's old.
Yeah.
Like it's not even relevant at that point because you were so worried about being perfect. There's a whole fable there about that. But it's now they do more agile delivery. And I think if we think about as leaders, get a minimum viable product, a minimum viable idea, a minimum viable effort out.
Right.
But be curious while you're doing it and learn, get data, and get a better effort.
Right.
Get a better application, get a better release. And I think we do it in technology, we do it everywhere else. We don't do it as leaders enough.
Yeah.
And I think embracing that, but that brings us to the culture becomes the foundation for all of this.
Hey everyone, thanks for joining us on The Next Level. We hope that you found a couple of tips or insights today that you can take into your daily life. To learn more about our leadership training programs, our executive coaching programs, and the Team Performance Institute, please visit us at teamperformanceinstitute.com or email us at info@teamperformanceinstitute.com. Hope you have an awesome day.